This episode is sponsored by Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes the Steel Woods on April 26th and Little River Band on May 3rd. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Tomorrow marks the 15th anniversary of the acclaimed musical Next to Normal premiering on Broadway. I spoke with actor Tveit, who originated the role of Gabe Goodman when he performed at Wolf Trap in 2018.
We are here with
Tveit. How you doing?
How you doing? The reason we're talking is because he's coming to wonderful Wolf Trap at the Barns. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us, Aaron.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, now, what sort of things, if our listeners, they've been following your career on stage and screen, and they love you, and they come out, they get their tickets, they're all excited. What can they expect to hear?
Well, I try to kind of put these shows together. This is actually a new show. I was at Wolf Trap last year around this time and kind of premiered a piano voice show, and this is a new piano voice show. So, but as I'm putting it together, I realized that, as you said, a lot of people know me from certain things, and so I try to kind of pay respect to that. If they're coming to hear specific things from shows that I've been in, I try to make sure that I put those songs in there, maybe in a new way they haven't heard before, and then from there, I've been doing these concerts for the last couple of years, and I've learned that a successful evening a lot of times comes from me having as much fun as possible and the audience having as much fun as possible. And so from that, I really try to not take myself too seriously and to find some things that maybe are completely unexpected that they may not hear that will, create a very fun moment for everyone in the room.
Yeah, if you're having fun, there's a good chance we're probably having fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. Can we get a little sneak peek of, maybe a thing or two on the set list, or is it a total surprise?
Well, there'll definitely be some stuff from the shows that I've been in, Next to Normal and Catch Me If You Can. We may go way back in the time machine and hit some stuff from Rent, which is my first ever job. There's some stuff from Grease. So I'm kind of hitting all those things, and then there may be a couple pop songs worked into the mix and some standards, and the rest I'll kind of just tease out and say you got to come check out to see what it is.
Awesome. I mean, you mentioned some of the highlights we know from you, but real quick, memories of being Gabe and Next to Normal, and just Tom Kitt, Brian Yorkie. Why did those songs you think resonate so much?
They really are just brilliant songwriters for the stage specifically and storytellers. And, it was such a kind of surprising mix of this rock music with this very, very difficult subject matter of, bipolar schizophrenia. And at first, I just remember then telling people, like, I'm in a musical and it's about a woman who's, struggling with her mental disorder. And people said, you're in a musical about this? And so I think the kind of juxtaposition of those two things together was ultimately the success of that, and how kind of we just presented, and they presented this very tough subject matters in such a straightforward way, and, the music just lent itself to that kind of emotion, and it was an incredible thing.
Now, I know that was the big Broadway smash, but you alluded that you also were in the national tour of Rent, and
yes.
Also Hairspray national tour, right? I mean, you've done it all.
That's right. Yeah, my first two jobs, I got to go on tour with Rent for a year, and then on tour with Hairspray for a year. And as a 20-year-old kid, I couldn't have imagined anything better. It was really, really something.
How did that actually come about? Because you grew up in New York and you went to Ithaca College, right? So
yeah, I grew up in New York and I went to Ithaca, and then I was a voice major when I went to Ithaca. I was studying classical literature and classical voice and some opera, and then I switched into musical theater my second year, and then it just so happened that the national tour of Rent, the music director had gone to Ithaca, and he came and kind of did a workshop with one of our classes in the musical theater program, and we all kind of did a a quote-unquote mock Rent audition for him. And kind of after this audition, he pulled me aside and said, hey, man, you're perfect for the show. If anything opens up, can I give you calls? Is there like a number I can take? And I had no experience with anyone in the real world at that point. And I kind of just said, like, yeah, sure, dude. If anything comes up, call me. Like, yeah, right. And then a couple months later, he called me up and said, hey, we have this track opening up. Do you want to come to the final callback in New York? And I said, kind of in my total naive innocence, like, yeah, of course I'll come. And I went down and I somehow got the job and dropped out of school that day. It was absolutely insane.
That's awesome. And then didn't Wicked came after that shortly?
Yes, I did those two things, and then I went to New York with Hairspray. That was my first show in New York, and then actually I started working on Next to Normal, kind of off Broadway, and then between doing Next to Normal off Broadway and then down in D.C. at Arena.
Yeah, you did it down here at Arena, baby.
We did, yes. I love Washington, but I have many fond memories of that. But yeah, so Wicked was kind of around those at that same time, and then Next to Normal on Broadway, and then Catch Me Can on Broadway, and then it all went from there.
Absolutely. And then you'd already left your mark on stage, and then you started leaving your mark on our TV sets. Memories of working in Gossip Girl, sir.
Yeah, that was I actually was doing Gossip Girl. There was about a 6 or 8 week stretch where I was doing Next to Normal at night and on the weekends, and shooting Gossip Girl during the day in New York. So I was on a television show and starring on Broadway, and I didn't have a day off for about 8 weeks, but I was 25 and had all the energy in the world. But it was like the greatest thing. I was working on this awesome television show and at the same time starring on stage on Broadway. It was just, talk about a pinch me moment. It was amazing.
Yeah, actually Leighton Meester just came, and she joined us a year ago or something. She came and sang.
Is that right?
She came and sang at Birchmere, and now you're doing the same thing. You're singing at Wolf Trap. We get all the good ones.
Very cool. Yeah, she's a great singer as well.
Absolutely. And then from there, you kind of pivoted and you start doing some movies too. I want to know what it was like. That must have been an intense experience with Hugh Jackman and Anne Hathaway on Les Mis.
God.
All those intense close-ups, recording live on set. Talk about like how different that was to do it live right there on set.
Yeah, it was a very for me, it was a very strange culmination of like all the work I'd been doing previously in a weird way. It kind of was taking, the on-camera work that I'd been doing, working on, in a couple of movies and on television, and then, of course, combining that with the live element where I was very comfortable just from years of being on stage. And so for me, I was pretty comfortable. I was probably as comfortable as you could be with that, because I was confident that I'd be able to, kind of repeat the live element over and over again. But the hard part, of course, was, you're used to doing a live on stage once a night. We would have to do 10, 15 takes over and over and over again. So that was the thing that became really hard with the film, was that we were doing it live, and so we had to do it over and over and over again. And but working with those guys was just absolutely incredible. I mean, Hugh had the most work to do out of everybody. He had like a Herculean mountain to climb, but at the same time, he was the nicest and kind of set such an example for all of us that, was just, for me as a young actor, it was wonderful to see somebody that I admired so much and how much work he put in, and then, of course, even more than that, the way that he carried himself every day. I mean, I was so struck by that, and I try to always remember that, as I'm working. It was such a shining example of the kind of on-set actor that I wanted to be.
Absolutely. And then Anne, Anne won the Oscar, and she probably said, I learned it all from Aaron.
Yeah, no, she was brilliant, man. I mean, that shot of her singing that song that does not cut away is just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. She was so brilliant.
Unbelievable. Well, Russell Crowe, I mean, the list goes on and on. We could spend all day talking about it. But,
yes, we could.
But I definitely want to hit the one, at least a little more recently, that a lot of our listeners and viewers would remember, Danny Zuko in Grease Live.
Yes, another kind of very strange moment that I found myself in, of like, much like Les Mis, like this, all this other work that I've been doing kind of coming together. I mean, that was obviously one night, and so, but, again, because of kind of the stage experience I had, it kind of helped squash my nerves a little bit to say, like, you know what, we've done this, we've done it in rehearsal, we've done it in dress rehearsal. Yes, there's going to be X amount of millions of people watching in this moment, but I tried not to focus on that. I tried to focus simply on, by that point, that Sunday night performance, we'd run it with all technical elements live with an audience, I think 4 or 5 times at that point. So we were rehearsed. We were like ready to go. Now, that being said, anything could have gone wrong that night, and thank goodness it didn't. And it was quite an event. It was quite a 3-hour sprint. Because what you didn't say was us all sprinting between stages and scenes and changing during the commercial breaks, and so it was quite an evening.
Oh, we could imagine that while we were sitting there seeing the ads. Yeah. You guys were sweating bullets, and
there was one moment like after Grease Lightning finished where I think we had like a 3.5-minute commercial break. I was supposed to get in a golf cart, ride to another stage, underdress the whole change. Oh, first of all, get all the sweat off me, underdress the whole change, and then put my Danny Zuko outfit over top. Well, I felt like I didn't have time to wait for the cart, and so I literally finished Grease Lightning. As soon as they said we were to commercial, I sprinted to the other stage, then wiped the sweat off, and then did my change, and then walked into the diner like nothing had happened.
Yeah, let's see Travolta do that.
It was quite a thing, man. It was amazing.
Did you grow up watching that and John Travolta and all that?
Oh, I sure did. Yeah. And I watched it a lot when I was a kid. And Julianne Hough and I actually early in the rehearsal process, we all kind of got us all together and we watched the movie. And man, that movie is amazing. And kind of looking at it now, all these years later, I've got an even greater appreciation. And specifically, the two of them are like their performances. They walk this line of kind of like absurdity and realism, and the two of them are unbelievable at kind of making this tone and setting this tone of that film. And kind of going back and watching it, it was really, really cool to see how incredible they actually are in that film.
You mentioned Julianne Hough. Talk about, working not only with her, but also Vanessa Hudgens, who came to D.C. in Gigi, they did here at the Kennedy Center.
That's right.
Talk about sort of just what they're like. Because we see them one way on screen, but, behind the scenes, the stuff we don't see, just working with them sort of as people and just their work ethic.
It was very similar to Les Mis. You kind of get a chance to work with these people that have done all of this and done all this work and are at this level of success. And I've in my personal experience, the higher that I've gone with kind of working with those kind of people, the nicer they are. And that was the exact same way with Jules and with Vanessa. And Vanessa and I actually did Rent together at the Hollywood Bowl in 2010. And so I've known her for a long time. And then to kind of see, I knew that a lot of friends had done Gigi with her and said she was amazing in that. And, to kind of see her, I thought she was incredible, both of them, but Vanessa, I thought she was incredible in Grease as Rizzo. And, to kind of, to watch both of their work ethic and to, come into something that they not necessarily, everyone in that whole thing had different levels of experience with live performance. Obviously, Julianne with being on Dance with the Stars and that live element, but, everybody kind of put all of their their different experience levels at the door, and we all got to work, and everyone worked so hard. And I think that's what really showed on screen in Grease is that that couldn't have gone off if everyone wasn't kind of working their butts off, and they all were. And it was so much fun, and we really forged this little family for that time. It was pretty great.
And directing that little family as a guy who actually grew up in the D.C. area as well, you might know him from Hamilton, Thomas Kail.
Yes, I sure do. Tommy Kail. He was our coach and our quarterback, and led us through that craziness. He's a good friend, and I would do anything that guy was doing. Anything he called me up to do, I'd say I'm there. He's really, really special. It's not a fluke, all the success he's having.
I believe that Grease Live was one of the first that kind of kicked off. We've seen a bunch of them lately here, or was Peter Pan the first one?
They did Sound of Music and Peter Pan, and before that, and The Wiz too. Yes, it was kind of it was early on, but I just think it's wonderful that they're taking a chance to do these live musicals, and first of all, going to see a Broadway show or seeing a touring show, it's expensive, and it's such a small group. If you think about, even like a show like Wicked that has 2,000 people there every night. Like through the course of a year, 500 performances, that's not really that many people when 15 million can watch a night of these performances. So the fact that, they're able to bring these specific musical theater performances to households everywhere across America and around the world, I think is just wonderful, and I hope it continues.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about Mike Warren. Graceland.
That's right. Yeah.
What was that like doing a regular? Because you've done stage shows all these times, and then finally you're doing an episodic TV show.
I loved it. Graceland was such a incredible experience. Our cast, we absolutely all loved each other, and we all kind of had to. We shot the pilot in California, and then had to all kind of move to South Florida together to shoot the show. And we all, I think, banded together even closer over that. The fact that we had to live in Florida, kind of out of our own natural element, and it was working in television is kind of, even though there's very long hours, it's the closest to a regular job I think you can find as an actor, because it's Monday to Friday. Even if you're working till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes Friday nights, you have Saturday and Sunday off, which is something you do not get in the theater. You only get one day off when you're doing the theater. So the fact that you end up with 2 days, you kind of feel the most like a regular person, and so that it's a very favorable schedule in that way. And I love that story, and USA was wonderful, and I was very, we were all very sad that it ended. We would have all been very happy if we were doing that for, another 3-4 years. So that was too bad.
We already talked about how you kind of followed in, you had to take a Travolta film role and follow in those footsteps, but you did it again with the Leo DiCaprio role, Catch Me If You Can, turning that into a musical.
That's right.
Was that role as, what was his name, Frank? Was that one of your favorites?
Frank Abagnale.
Does he still linger with you a while? Do you always think back on that?
I do. That was another one. That was just that I worked on that for a long time before it got to Broadway, and I was obviously a big fan of the movie. And it was we ran for 6 months on Broadway, and again, it was one of these things that I think we'd all hoped it ran a little longer, but it was such a great experience, and we were all so close. And I got to know Frank. Frank was around and very much a part of that, and he's a big time public speaker, and he would come and speak to our audiences, and he was he became like an integral part of that, and that was kind of amazing to get to know him. He's such a fantastic, interesting person who, he would always talk about how he is the embodiment of the American dream because he got a second chance, and that's a lot about what he would talk about, and that always really resonated with me. He did all these things, but he paid back all the money that he stole, and he's truly been given a second chance, and he talked about that's the great thing about America, and I always thought that was amazing.
Definitely. All right, final question. Let's bring it all the way full circle back to, you're coming back to the D.C. area, and how, you were just at Arena Stage. You got the Helen Hayes and all that for when Next to Normal was here. And earlier you said, I love D.C. Why? Why are you so excited to come back here at Wolf Trap?
I have such great experiences there from Next to Normal, and I had such a blast last year at Wolf Trap, but every time I'm in D.C., I think that it's kind of one of the only American cities that feel reverential in a way. It feels grand. It feels like kind of an old European city. I think that's what it was designed to feel like. And I don't know, I always feel, no matter what's going on in the world or in the country, every time I'm there, I feel a sense of pride in our country in a way that I don't get from other cities necessarily. It feels very American, and I always feel great about that. It has a good feeling to me whenever I'm there.
We love it. Well, we're so excited to see you. What's next for Aaron? You got anything in the hopper after the tour?
I have a couple movies. I just shot a movie in New Orleans, Out of Blue, that should kind of be out this coming year. I have one actually that premieres streaming on demand and limited release tomorrow called Created Equal. So check it out on iTunes or whatever streaming service you prefer. But just looking to see, do some more concerts, and we'll see what the next thing blows me towards.
All right. Well, first, everyone come out to see him at Wolf Trap on Friday the 26th and Saturday the 27th. Aaron, thanks so much. You've been generous with your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.